Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Busy day at the state capitol. Well, as we all know, Ohio is facing a $3.2 billion budget gap. It's the result of the worldwide economic decline, and in particular here in Ohio, because of the decline in the automotive sector. Despite these challenges, Ohio has been able to manage through this recession. But it is worth noting what other states are going through across our nation. Just today in California, for example, the state is issuing IOUs for payments to local governments, businesses, and taxpayers as the governor and the legislative leaders deal with a $26 billion budget gap. In Pennsylvania, our neighboring state, state leaders are at a stalemate over tax increases and spending cuts to meet their own $3.2 billion budget gap. I talked with Governor Rendell yesterday, and I was surprised to learn that their budget gap is 3.2, as is ours, and that they are dealing with that by reducing state spending by about $2.4 billion, as I have suggested. Arizona, North Carolina, and other states are negotiating tax increases. In Illinois, policymakers are not even negotiating. But here in Ohio, despite obvious frustrations, leaders continue to talk. I believe that we all have a shared responsibility in finding a budget solution that is balanced and will position Ohio for job growth and a stronger economy in the future. And I continue to believe that we can work through these challenges and position Ohio for a stronger future. I want to thank the legislature for passing a bipartisan continuing resolution that has allowed us to utilize the rainy day fund. Because of that, we have concluded the previous fiscal year in balance. That's better cooperation, I might say, than what is occurring in most other states. I wanted to share with you something that I think I've shared with you before. I was asked to provide a budget framework to help the legislature as they grappled with our own $3.2 billion budget gap. And so I did just that. I know that not everyone is happy with the choices put forth in that framework, and I acknowledge that. My proposal was intended as a starting point, not an ending point. But I continue to believe that the proposal I did put forth, which addresses the budget gap with 2/3 cuts and 1/3 revenue, is the best pathway forward. My budget framework calls for resizing state government in line with the shrinking economy. We're doing that while minimizing the impact on our most vulnerable citizens, especially our children, the elderly, and the disabled. I propose $2.43 billion in state government spending reductions. My budget also calls for prioritizing education in order to drive Ohio's economic growth. And my proposal would balance the budget with an estimated $933 million in new revenue through the legislative authorization of video lottery terminals. I believe that implementing VLTs at our racetracks is preferable to a tax increase. I would also like to clarify why I am seeking legislative approval for VLTs at the state's 7 racetracks. I am not seeking political cover. I am seeking legislative action because Ohio law requires any expansion of gambling to be expressly permitted in statute. When we expanded the lottery to include Keno last year, legislation was not required because Keno is a ticketed lottery game, and expanding the lottery to include new ticketed games is permissible under Ohio law. Because VLTs are similar to slot machines, which are illegal under Ohio law, clear statutory permission is required to bring the state the anticipated $933 million in new revenue. Ohio will not see this revenue without legislative action. Now, I know that some legislators are suggesting that my VLT proposal should go to a vote of the people. But I believe the people have elected us to deal with this current economic crisis, and I believe that my proposal is the best way to do that. I know that this afternoon, in this great house of the people, there are what has been termed dueling committees. Committees in the House and in the Senate. Both chambers, I emphasize, have a right to hold hearings in order to better understand the choices before them. Senate President Bill Harris and the Ohio Senate has a strong track record of getting things done in tough times, as does Speaker Budish and the Ohio House. Working together, I remain hopeful that this time will not be an exception.